showing up for yourself is one of the biggest foundations of your self-love, because it's about you showing up for you, even when you don't necessarily feel like it, even when you're not ready, even when you just don't know where to begin. Well, it's going to all start with you showing up for yourself. So welcome to episode 110 of the Positivity Experience. It's all about showing up for yourself. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori. It is episode 110 already. Boy, oh boy. Welcome. We're almost through January already. Goodness. And I want to give a huge shout out to the newest Patreon subscribers. And today on the Patreon, it's going to go hand in hand with this, as I try to make sure that they do. And it's also going to have a little worksheet. And what we're talking about over there is working and healing your inner child. So it's going to go really good with this podcast. If you are interested in becoming a Patreon, you can just follow the description in the show notes. And there's a link right there, or you can go to patreon.com/the Positivity Experience. But let's talk about 5 ways, okay, that you're going to be able to show up for yourself. And it's all within your power. You know, there's so much that we focus on, like we feel like everybody else has power over us, right? Because it could be from a wounded inner child. It could be from not having direction. So showing up for yourself is going to be the biggest thing that you can do to start that foundation of that self-love, right? And by doing so, it's a spiral, right? You're going to start being able to establish boundaries. You're going to be able to do all of these things because it's going to come natural without so much effort. Yes, there's going to be effort to show up for yourself, but everything else is kind of like a byproduct, right? It's like you never go to the gym to lose weight. You go to the gym because it's good for your body in that day. And if you're consistent with it, maybe the outcome of that is you lose weight or you firm up, but that should never be your sole focus. So that's why you're always going to fall in love with the journey. And if you can't fall in love with the journey, the result will never be enough. And you're always going to chase things. You know how people say, oh, I just never feel satisfied. Well, because you're not falling in love with the journey and you're looking externally for something to heal you that can only be healed internally. So let's talk about what showing up for yourself means. So this means you're not waiting for somebody else. You're not waiting for someone, and you're not waiting for the perfect timing, right? The perfect time doesn't necessarily exist because, number one, time's fake. It only exists now. But, you know, it's kind of an excuse that we give ourselves too, because you want to feel, I want it to be right. I want to know I'm not going to fail. I want to know I'm safe. Well, yeah, all of those things you're going to have to let go. Showing up for yourself means you're willing to show up for yourself knowing that regardless of the outcome, you're going to be okay. You're going to embrace that unknown because you know that you're there for you. And if it doesn't work out, you've learned the lesson in your life already. You've learned the lesson and now you're going forward, right? So let's talk about number 1, because we're going to talk about 5. But like I said, if I was to talk about them all, we'd be here for 74 hours and maybe that wouldn't be enough. And so let's talk about it. So number 1 is you're going to have to deal with self-reflection. Right? So, and we talk a little bit about that on the other podcast, but that one's more about reparenting yourself. This is more about understanding what your goals are. Okay. When you're not clear with your goals, it's going to be really hard to show up for yourself because what are you showing up for? You don't really have a direction. You're like, okay, I'm here maybe. Like, I don't really even know where to start. Like what is going on? So you have to self-reflect. You have to do some reflection and say, what are my goals? And not just what are my goals? Why do I have those goals? So you can say, well, I want to be happy. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's such a silly thing because happy is a describer word. It doesn't have an actual definition because it means different things to different people, right? So you're going to have to get clear into why you have the goal in the first place. Is it to make mom and dad happy? Yeah, that's not going to be a good reason. Is it to have more friends? That's not going to be a good reason. Is it because you need more people to like you? Again, not a good reason. That's all insecurity. So you want to make sure that whatever your goals are, they are clear and they are distinct for you. This means you don't have to listen to this podcast and go, God, I don't know what my goals are. Well, that's fine. Maybe you're not supposed to know that question 4 minutes and 44 seconds, because that's a good number, into this podcast, and you're supposed to have all these answers. See, that's your biggest issue right there too, is that you think that you're supposed to know everything you want to do, have it all figured out, Note to self and note to you, you will never have it all figured out. And you will have to constantly reanalyze. I like to reanalyze every quarter. And I go, okay, these were my goals I'll have like a year-long goal. And then I backtrack, right? Go out to episode 37 of the podcast. You'll hear the micro goals, and then go to episode 103 of the podcast, and you'll hear how to have a successful 2023. But it really doesn't have anything to do with 2023. It's just for you to understand how you want to identify them. And then you want to remember that you have to take the baby steps. It has to be baby steps. You can't say, this is what I want by December, and then if it doesn't happen, you feel like a total loser. Well, did you reanalyze it? Did you go, oh God, I really overshot that? Or maybe you're like, gosh, I could do that. I think I can get that done next month. Great. Maybe you're not going to get it done for 5 years. But you got to be honest with yourself. So self-reflection is self-honesty. Right? So you got to be honest with yourself. Don't say, well, I want to have a family. Well, if you don't want to have a family, don't have a family. Don't have a family because your mom wants you to have kids. If you don't want to have kids, don't have kids. So you need to be clear with what your goals are and your life goals. So this isn't just about success and education and finances. This is about internally. What are some goals that you have for you? How are you showing up for yourself every single day so tomorrow's you feels as though they feel loved by you? Stop worrying about being loved by everybody else. When you're doing something that you don't feel like doing, but you know it's going to be for the better version of you tomorrow, your tomorrow self deserves this sort of respect, then it's easier to show up. But you got to know what you're showing up for. So number one is getting clear with your goals, reanalyzing them, right? It's not like you just throw these goals out and you're like, well, guess these are my only goals in life. That's silly. Not at all. You're going to have multiple goals in your life. It's going to change. Very often people's goals at 15 is going to change at 20, is going to change at 30, is definitely going to change at 60, right? So that's why you want to get clear in it. So the way that you show up for yourself is you dedicate time to figuring it out. Oh, because you don't know it right now, what, does that make you a loser? No. That makes you like, okay, let's self-reflect and see, God, maybe I've been living for everybody else. Maybe I've been living a life that I don't believe in the first place. So that's why it's a lifelong process. But that's why you always want to sit in reanalyzation. Now, number 2 goes really hand in hand with that. What level of commitment? I didn't say motivation. I didn't say feel like. What level of commitment are you really going to give your goals and showing up for your tomorrow self? Now, you got to be clear in this, and it has to make sense to you. You can't show up for yourself every single day and think you're going to knock 57 goals out by the end of the year. No. You got to make sure that the goals that you have are clear and meaningful to you, and you are willing to commit to it, which means a self-commitment. Yes, it's great to honor your commitments to other people. That's your integrity. But it's how you show up for yourself is your respect for yourself. And far more important than how you show up for everybody else. Still important, like still be integrous, but you cannot not show up for yourself. You can't just make a goal and go, yeah, because I can't wait to the end goal. This is why that part of falling in love with the journey has to be there. Because when you make a commitment to yourself, you know you're going to have to do the grunt work. You know you're going to have to show up for yourself on the days you just don't feel like it. And you know that sometimes not feeling like it is okay. And you can sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day. But then the next day you get up, you go, okay, we needed that break. We didn't get burned out because that's on this list. So I'll talk to you about that in a second. But you got to ask yourself what level of commitment, because it's real easy to put a goal out there. It's real easy to put a desire out there. But what are you willing to do for it? How are you going to show up for yourself when you don't feel like doing that blank, whatever that is, that thing, that blank? How are you going to do that? On the days, are you building in time to rest? Because you got to work and play in equal measure. You can't just always be working on yourself. You can't always be working on your goals. You can't always be doing those things. You got to have the downtime. Work and play in equal measure. So are you going to commit to showing up for yourself hardcore when you're there for yourself, and then on your time off, you're showing up for yourself to do nothing? So it's just as equally important to show up for yourself to do nothing. There's zero reason to feel guilty for it. If you do, then boy, do you need that inner child work, and you need to book a session, and we need to get into it right away. Because you not doing something and you treating yourself and you giving yourself a reward, my God, you need to do that. So your commitment has to be on both sides. Show up for yourself 100% when you need to show up and be strong, and show up 100% for yourself to remind yourself that you deserve to have that space to break. Like not break into, I mean like to have a break. Okay, so this is an important one. Now, what did I say about burnout? This is also number 3. So we've covered 1, we've covered 2, and you'll see how they all play well together, and we'll kind of go a little bit deeper too. Is, my God, don't get burned out. Ugh, burnout is a real thing. Burnout isn't always, the whole, oh, I can't get off the couch. Right? That's not the only way, right? If you feel like, oh my God, I'm self-doubting myself all the time. I feel like I'm failing all the time. I feel like I'm running on empty. That's burnout. If you're like, oh my God, I just can't do anything right. I feel so defeated. I feel so drained and helpless. Oh, burnout. I'm so alone and isolated. I don't mean living alone. I'm so isolated. I feel so detached from everything. It's hard for me to show up. Burnout. Okay. Constant negative outlook, believe it or not, burnout. Do you know how exhausting that is to stay negative all the time? A lot. It's very exhausting. And another big key with that is understanding like, God, I used to love doing stuff like this. I don't mean like in a depression. I mean like, God, I'm doing it. I'm showing up. I don't feel depressed. I'm just so exhausted. Burnout. And that's why you have to have work and play in equal measure. So I know a lot of you listened from all over the world, and I've said this to you guys before, is so many of you really harness that work and play in equal measure. I have some amazing clients that talk to me about this a lot in Spain. And, they're like, yeah, we don't take that work home with us. Oh no, when we are out, we are out. When we are done, we are done. We don't even show up till 9:30. But when they're there, they're there. So they're intentional. They're there, they're showing up because they know that they are going to work and play in equal measure. In some weird universe, okay, people have come up with this idea that you have to work 97,000 hours and you got to show up for yourself every day. That's not showing up for yourself. That's also identifying yourself with success. That's creating awful perfectionism. That's creating so many awful, awful habits. So the burnout piece of it is understanding that you can't always work on just healing yourself. When I go to the gym or when I go for walks or if I'm cleaning up or something like that, I'm not listening to self-help stuff. I'm not listening to more research stuff. I'm listening to murder. I'm listening because I know it is kind of like work, but it's more or less like analyzing people. And so it's fun. It's enjoyable to me because I'm showing up for myself to give myself this escape where nobody needs me. Nobody wants me. It is all about me. I am nurturing myself. I'm not trying to learn something new. I'm not trying to figure something out. I'm not trying to be there for somebody. I'm just there. So you have to remember that just because you want to heal, you have to pause and integrate. The power of the pause is ridiculously amazing. And remember these 3 things. You got to show up for yourself, right? So you got to educate yourself. Right? You can educate all day long. You could listen to 800 podcasts, 7,000 books, 7 million different therapists, and 44 different drugs. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you don't execute it, it's wasted energy. You can have the tools. If you're not executing it, it means nothing. You could have PhDs in a million different psychologies. If you're not executing it, you might as well have no knowledge at all. So it's educate, integrate, which is like, execute, and then celebrate. That means you can't always be learning more, feeling better, earning more money, doing these things, writing this next book, creating this next venture. Okay, oh my God, you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to go crazy. You cannot allow the burnout. So showing up for yourself isn't just showing up to meet your goals, to reflect, to level set, to micro goal, to commit to it. It's also not to allow yourself burnout. You are not meant to be everything to everybody. You heard me. You heard me. If you get abducted by aliens tomorrow, your family, your business, your friends, they'll figure it out. You don't have to like it, but it's facts. So before you go putting the weight of the world on your shoulder, talking about, well, if I don't do this at home, it's never going to get done. What happens if you get hit by a bus today? Okay, what? Okay, if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. They'll figure it out. But you got to stop burning yourself out. You got to stop burning the candle out at both ends. If you want to sit on the couch and you want to watch Wednesday on repeat for a day, then watch it all day long. And then next day, say, okay, you know what, man, that was good. Now, eventually, you'll find that balance. You don't want to live in black and white. You want to live in gray. So for me, give you an example. For me, when I'm done, like right now I'm recording and I'm trying to be ahead, and so far I'm doing really good about it. Well, I know when I'm done, I'm going to straighten up the kitchen a little bit because my tomorrow self deserves it. I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to watch television and crochet. Do I have a million things to do? I do. Do I care about them? I do not. Because if I don't nurture that piece of my soul, I will burn out. Then I will have no enjoyment over anything and everything that I do. And so that's why you want to identify and understand that, and that could be something that you see with somebody you know. You're like, God, every Saturday they're like out on the boat. Good for them. Don't get out of your headspace. Just because you feel like I'm doing everything, you don't have to do everything. The fact that you feel that way, that goes way deeper. That's a way deeper issue. Because guess what? It's not, you don't have to do everything. I was a single parent for a while, right? And I felt like I'd do everything until I didn't. Meaning like, I'd be like, no matter what we have to do, well, let's go to the movies. You know, or better yet, I'm getting a sitter for you and I'm going to go out. Doesn't make me a bad parent. It makes me a balanced person. So I get it. I get where you feel like sometimes, especially if you're a single parent or you're trying to figure out this weird thing called life. You feel like I got to do it all. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you have responsibilities, but you also owe it to yourself to show up for yourself, to chill out. You know, in the summer, because I saved 6.5 years for my pool. In the summer, my Sundays around my pool are priceless to me. Sometimes I'll have people over. A lot of times I will not because I enjoy that me time. I earned it. I want to sit with it. I want to love it. I want to be in the moment. I want to hear the birds. I don't want to have to worry about a lot of things. I want to listen to music. And I do that as a treat for myself to show up for me. It's kind of like when my husband goes golfing. That's him showing up for himself because he doesn't always have to be on. Okay. So those are so far 3. So you see how they go together. It's great to have the goal. You're doing that self-reflection, you're committing to it, and you're committing to that balance. So another word to make it simple about not having burnout is called balance. You need balance, okay? Everybody has the same time in the day. You cannot keep learning and healing yourself every single day. You can't keep building new businesses every single day. You will crumble. I mean crumble. Okay. Number 4. Your negative thinking has got to get in check. Okay. Yes, this may be something that is hardwired in your brain so far now because of past history, some traumas, maybe anxieties, depression, other things. We know that the negativity, right, has now become a default. That negative thinking has become a default way of thought, meaning you get up, it's easy to look at the glass half empty. So you got to retrain your brain. Like it's not, you don't just go, well, this is how I'm going to be the rest of my life. Please don't do that. That is the biggest victim mentality thing on the planet. This is just how I am. Like, no, that means when somebody says this is how I am, and I don't mean like, oh my God, this is how I am. I'm balanced. This is how I am. That's code word for I'm not going to work on myself and you're going to deal with it. Yeah, hard pass. Okay. So your negative thinking doesn't have to be there forever, but you have to rewire and reprogram your brain. And yes, affirmations do help with that. I am capable of handling anything the day sends my way, and I only ever have today. But here's the key. I don't care if you do affirmations. I don't care if you take your medicine. I don't care if you do therapy. If you are not consistent, right? And that's going to be the 5th one. So we're going to cover that in a minute. And that's a big one. That's my most favorite one, actually. But you know, the consistency in this. So when you are consistently practicing looking at the glass half empty and go, well, technically the glass is always full, because even if it's only half filled with water, the other half is filled with air, in turn creating a full glass. So the glass is always full. Do you see how that mindset shift is? So the negativity isn't, don't walk around being Pollyanna. Don't be nauseating, talking about, oh my God, the world's amazing. Like, of course not. You're going to have negative thoughts, but that's why you're going to process them in your negative journal or your process journal, right? And so having that, you have to keep your negative thoughts in check, understanding, well, this is a default mentality based on what I experienced, based on me thinking that I'm doing myself a favor, that I'm able to somehow or another prevent something negative by thinking negative. Getting clear and giving yourself that space to process it, not void it, not blame, because negative thoughts often go with blame. And so it's not to avoid them, it's to feel them, it's to process them, and it's to give it something else, right? So I just gave you that cup analogy. So remember, the cup is always full. In theory, the cup is full regardless whether there's water in there or not, because it's got air in it. So the cup is always full. But if you're always looking at it being empty, wondering why is there not more water in there, well, it's never going to be enough for you. So it's about getting your negative thoughts in check. It's about allowing yourself to say, okay, whoa, I am seeing. And some days you're just going to be a negative Nelly. And those days give yourself self-compassion, right? That's one of the biggest things with healing your inner child is self-compassion, knowing that you're not going to be perfect, knowing that you're not supposed to be perfect. It's so easy, especially like for me, I run my own business. I have other clients who run their own businesses or work for businesses that they're very close and near to their heart. And it's easy to go down that spiral of finances. Oh my God, what if? And you just got to just acknowledge it, real fear, allow that, pull a little power from it, allow it to inspire you, but don't get caught up in that loop. And that's probably one I have to tell myself, maybe 84 million times a day. And that's okay. That's okay. And I probably will 84 million times every single day. But it's changing it. So I just go, I know I'm exaggerating. It's not quite 84 million. And I'm so much better with it. And I allow myself, like I give myself what I call my little worry time a couple times a week. I check in and I go, oh my God, I'm going to have a woe is me moment. And I'm going to go through my worry phase. And I give myself a 15-minute worry section. And then I go, okay. And I write it all down in my negative journal. And I go, cool. Now, what can I do about these things? And if it's something I can do about it, then I start to put that going to number one. I start putting that as a goal, figuring out the steps that I need to do to take to get there, not doing so out of desperation, sitting in that space, committing to it, and not burning myself out. So do you see how this all sort of works in tandem together? It's like the chicken and the egg, but they're all so important. So it's not about fighting your negative thoughts. It's about giving them an outlet, listening to them, and then showing them, hey, you know what? I'm here for you. I'm listening to you. Nobody else has to. But let me give you a different perspective. So it's you sort of therapizing yourself and giving yourself a space and giving yourself time to work out what you can do. And some things are just going to be out of your control. That goes into radical acceptance. Okay. So this goes into number 5. And this will be anything that I ever talk to you about. Consistency. I don't care what you do for a week. I don't care what you do for a day. I don't care what you do for 3 days, for 3 months. If you can't commit to being consistent, there is no commitment. Okay. So if you're not consistent with your consistency, wow. Commitment. If you're not consistent with your commitments, it's going to fall short. So let me give you an example, because I've been talking about this up until the beginning of the year. For a while, I was like, I want to be 4 episodes ahead in the first part of the year. So here we are. I'm recording this, and I don't think this is coming out till the end of January or the 1st of February. And I'm recording this on January 19th. Yeah, so it's going to be in February. And right now, this is my 3rd one. And I'm going to make short. So tomorrow I have another one I'm doing, and I'm taking it above 4 weeks. I'm going to try to eventually get to 12 weeks, because a lot of my podcast friends all have 12 weeks in the hopper, because then if I want to take time off in the summer, I don't have to worry about it. Or, if you don't feel good, things like that. But because I kept saying I was going to do it, but I never really made a commitment to it, it was just a fleeting thought, and it was going to start next week, which is the same thing I did with my book, because I changed it up. And so with my book, I've committed, and I can't tell you the timeline, but it's going to be spring, but I have committed to a certain time in March to have it completely finished and off to edits. And I've actually made that accountability with the people who edit. So I now have something that I've committed. I have the time frame that I'm going to do it in, how I'm going to do it, which no need to share with you because it's my journey. But I'm committed to it. And you can halfway commit to things. And that's by saying, I want to do it. I desire to do it, but then you have no commitment. Well, hell, that's just a dream. I have a commitment to winning $8 million on a lottery, but that's out of my control. But it's consistency. So the consistency has to be there. You don't get to journal in the 5 journals 2 days a week and go, I'm trying. That's good. I do need you to show up and try. That's beautiful. But what's the commitment to get to this, to get to the 7 days, right? You don't have to hit it out the park and do 7 days off the rip. But what's the commitment to getting to it? Don't say, well, I'm going to do it. That doesn't mean anything. That's not committing to yourself. That's not showing up for yourself. But it's committing to saying, this is my timeline. Put deadlines on there. Make it happen. Show up for yourself. It is some of the biggest respect that you will ever give yourself. And check this out. Okay. This is the benefit. This should never be the reason, but it's a benefit. The way you show up for yourself is the way that you will allow things, people, and situations to show up for you. That's right. You heard me. It's also how you'll show up for other people. You'll respect other people's boundaries. You won't get in their business. You will stay in your lane because you realize it's not your journey. And you won't allow someone or something, right? You won't allow that energy to pull you down or pull you off course. You just won't allow it. And when you start to show that, you're literally, okay, you ready for this? You're literally demonstrating a boundary. See? It's not so much sitting there going, I got to have this boundary. No. You showing up for yourself and not allowing yourself to go pulled off track. I mean, things are going to happen. I mean, if things happen, they happen. You just get up, dust your shoulders off, and pick up where you left off. Like, it's not that deep. Let's not make it deeper than it is. But do not think that by you showing up for yourself, somehow or another, other people are going to railroad you. They can't. And if you're standing by you and you're showing up for you, no one else can damage you mentally. I mean, they can damage you. Trust me, they will try. But you got to remember that showing up for yourself is the biggest thing. No one else needs to show up for you more than you. And by you showing up consistently, if you go hiking in the summer, like, okay, so I use that pool thing. I mean, it's not going to be every Sunday. If the weather's bad, I'm not going to necessarily lay out there. And sometimes I'll have people there. But people also know, my friends and stuff, they know Sunday is my day. I might say, hey, if you're doing anything, feel free to come by. That's up to you. I'm not expecting you to be there. If you choose to come, you do. But if I'm not inviting you, that means I'm staying by myself because I'm committed to that. And that is a boundary. But I didn't have to sit there and say it. Do you see what I mean? So when you're working in that space, like I am not a great person. Well, it's not great. I'm just not that committed to my phone, right? Like, I mean, I have my phone. My watch doesn't even get text message alerts. It lets me know about my health and standing up and breathing and all that stuff. And I have no notifications on my phone. I have a separate phone that I'll use as my personal phone. I'm not that committed to it. It's not that important for me to reach out on the phone. It just isn't, right? Doesn't mean I won't. It just isn't, And so I think that in knowing that, and it's funny, my friend Ellen, I have 2 friends, Ellen, and both of them know. And my one friend, Ellen, is just like me. And then my other friend, Ellen, is more communicative, more people-oriented, and I'm not. And she understands that about me. But when we get together, oh my gosh, it's like dynamic. She's like an amazing human being. We love each other. I love her dearly. Just because I'm not calling her 24/7 doesn't mean I feel any less of a way. And she's even said, I know that. And, she said, it's funny, she was over before the holiday and she walked in and she said, you are the only person I don't walk in and hug right away. Cause she knows that that's not, I mean, I'm a big hugger, but I'm not instantly a hugger, right? So I love it. I love peopling, but it's just a boundary. And so she's like, I know that. But then when she leaves, I give her one hell of a hug. It's one hell of a good hug. So we know each other's boundaries, but it's not because I said, this is my boundary. It's because I know what I deserve and what I like for me. And she knows the same. And we love and we respect that from each other. But at no point did we say, these are our boundaries. So it comes from how you show up for yourself. And when you're showing up for yourself, you're not waiting on other people to show you the way. You're not waiting for anybody to save you. You're not waiting for anybody to run the marathon for you. You're not waiting for the cheerleading squad to come and tell you it's going to be okay. All beautiful things to have, but you're not waiting for it. You're not waiting for that support. You're not waiting for that. And the more you do that, the more people around you, there's going to be some people around you just not going to like it. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Some people are just not going to like it. They're going to think you're extra. They're going to think you're all about yourself. Well, I mean, who else are you supposed to be absorbed with them? Oh, because you're not showing up how they want you to show up. Got it. You see what I mean? So you don't judge them either. They're on a different part of their journey. So, but you will find that when you start showing up for yourself, the vibe around you and the tribe around you will align without you even seeking it. So you don't want to go out and I need this. I got to have this. I got to have this interaction. No, you got to show up for yourself, right? You're sitting here and you're worried about showing up for everybody else. What about you? Okay. So this is a real important one for you. And I want you to remember those 5 things and how they align together, right? So let's do a brief overview, a summary of that. You're going to get clear with your goals and why you even have them. You're going to reflect on them frequently, preferably every quarter. Check in with yourself. Commit. What level of commitment are you willing to commit to yourself and show up when you don't feel like it? Are you willing to commit to having downtime? Are you willing to commit to understanding this is your journey and this is your purpose? Are you willing to commit to that? Okay. Make sure you know your feelings, right? Make sure you understand that and you're sitting with your feelings. You're not trying to negate it, and make sure that you're not getting burned out. And with all of that, you are consistent, because let me tell you, and I promise you this, you deserve to show up for yourself and love yourself like nobody else can.